You know, I try to remain pretty positive on this channel. I tend to look on who's doing well and why they're doing well. I really hate how in sports there's so much negativity that gets spread around. It seems like people don't even like sports, they just like to make fun of it, and so I tend to look on the positive side of things. However, sometimes there's just something that you have to talk about, even if it's not exactly something that was a good thing that a player did. I mean, I think even Jared Goff and Sean McVay would tell you that their performance on Super Bowl 53 was just a disaster. And really, to be honest, there's few things I hate more than when someone gets a chance to win a Super Bowl and blows it. And in my opinion, that's what the Rams offense did. It really annoyed me in Super Bowl 51 when the Falcons blew that lead, and it really annoyed me in Super Bowl 53 when the Rams just couldn't get anything going offensively. One of the things I think really hurt the Rams was Jared Goff not being able to make great reads. In the past, it seems like he actually has done a pretty good job of being able to read what the play is and making a good play. However, typically when he's done that, it's been against very basic schemes that you expect other teams to be running. And I think the Patriots did a very good job of mixing things up and not exactly running very much basic scheme. This play is exactly what I'm talking about. As you see, it's going to be a cover one linebacker blitz, and this is the route concept that the Rams are going to be running. So you'd think that this decision should be pretty simple. Since the Rams do have a guy making a quick cut to the middle of the screen, that's the perfect way to beat a cover one blitz, and Goff can simply just hit him and they'll be able to pick up some yards. However, look at what ends up happening here. Despite that receiver getting open, look at the bottom half of the screen. The Patriot in charge of guarding the halfback is playing very far deep. This really means that it probably would have been a good decision for Goff to then hit that halfback and let him run forward. However, what it also means is that that route that initially was going to be very open now isn't as open as there's another Patriot in the area. I think this play perfectly explains why Goff had some struggles in the Super Bowl. McVay does a very good job of creating plays that will work on paper, but sometimes when the play actually breaks down, it doesn't work out as perfectly. But because Goff is still ready to make the play that he was supposed to make on paper, it doesn't always work out the way you'd want it. Really on this play, he should have thrown a check down to his halfback, or honestly, he could have even thrown a deep ball. However, he still ends up throwing to the route that he was supposed to throw to when he first read the play, and ends up being incomplete. Even if it was complete, it would have ended up going for only about 2 or 3 yards anyways, so it really wasn't a great decision by Goff. This next play is another good example of a read that wasn't really the best one by Goff. As you see, the Rams have a trips formation on the top half of the screen, and those are the routes that they'll be running. New England has 6 guys on the line in this play, and as you notice, they're going to drop one of them back into coverage. What ends up happening on the top half of the screen is the Rams end up running an accidental pick play, it seems, where they were able to have a receiver run into the guy who's in charge of guarding Brandon Cooks, and now Cooks ends up being wide open on the outside of the field. However, Goff had already made his mind up. Because of the perceived pressure, Goff thought he was going to make a throw a lot quicker and didn't think he had time to wait and see what's going on and then make a throw. As you see, he has a clean pocket, but he still tries to make a quick throw as he thought he wasn't going to have much time because that's what it seemed like it was going to happen at the beginning of the play. Goff could have easily waited a second and then hit Brandon Cooks, who would have been open for a first down, and this was 3rd down, so this was a huge play on this one. This honestly probably took 3 points off the board because Goff thought he had to make a quick throw when really he had a receiver wide open. While I am going to be talking a lot about how Jared Goff had a very bad performance, I think it's worth mentioning that the Patriots did exactly what you have to do to beat this Rams offense. Their entire game plan going in was to force Jared Goff to have to make decisions, and this play is a good example of that. As you see, it's a really unique defensive formation, as New England only has 2 defensive players on the line. This already means that Jared Goff knows he's going to have a lot to look at once this ball is snapped. New England's actually going to send 5 to pressure Goff, and Goff's going to actually realize that. Typically, that would mean that you have to play a cover 1 linebacker blitz with nobody guarding the middle of the screen, as simple math would tell you that you have 5 guys rushing the passer and then 5 to play man, meaning that you only have 1 other guy in coverage. However, notice how there's no Patriot in charge of guarding CJ Anderson. This is because the Patriot who's in charge of guarding the middle of the screen is actually going to keep an eye on Anderson. If Anderson ends up running a route, then he'll run to Anderson. However, if Anderson is just blocking, which actually is what he's doing on this play, then he can drop back into coverage and you can still create a cover 1 hole and have a 5-man rush. As you see, this is the route concept that the Rams are going to be running, and look at that route in particular. This would be a terrible route to run against a cover 1 hole. However, it's a great route to run against a cover 1 linebacker blitz, as if there's no one in the area, it would be wide open, and there's a quick cut, which is a great way to beat man coverage. The Patriots doing this is a creative play. However, it's not something that you'll never see. I mean, teams do this from time to time. Have a guy play coverage, but also keep an eye on the running back. But Jared Goff completely misses it. He sees the 5-man rush and assumes it's a cover 1 linebacker blitz and tries to throw over in the middle of the field. And this would have been an easy pick 6 if it wasn't tipped at the line. I mean, this is an easy 7 points he just gave to the Patriots, and he just got away with one here. Goff is a very talented quarterback, but he just struggles in making these post-snap reads, and this one's another good example. As you see, these two routes on the outside are designed to beat man coverage, as they're going to cross over, and that can confuse defensive backs and allow a receiver to get open. It's similar to a pick play. It's not a standard pick play, but it's pretty close. However, the problem is New England's running a cover 3 zone on this play, meaning that these routes are rendered useless, as no matter what, the Patriots are designed to each guard one side of the field. So they're not going to get confused and get crossed up when the receivers are running, because their whole goal is to be in one spot anyways. One thing I want to make sure I'm clear on is that New England deserves credit, not blame, for Jared Goff making these bad reads. As you see, Hightower on this play is going to creep up to the top half of the screen. This now means that the middle of the field is completely open and someone could easily get open. And that's actually exactly what happens. A Ram is wide open on this play that could easily pick up 10 yards and a first down. And so you might think, oh wow, Hightower was really lucky there. Thank God Jared Goff didn't throw to the other receiver, or Hightower would have made a huge mistake. But no, that's not the case at all. The Patriots know that Jared Goff isn't the kind of guy who goes through his progressions very well. So Hightower is completely okay with giving up an open receiver because he knows Goff isn't going to be throwing it there. As you see, this throw should never go to the top half of the screen. Gilmore is right on the intended receiver, and this isn't going to go for many yards at all. However, Goff is still convinced that he has to throw it there because that's what he was going to do before the ball was snapped. That's what he does, and it leads to relatively no gain. Another thing the Patriots deserve a lot of credit for is not being afraid to play zone coverage on 3rd down and short. This is a 3rd down and 2 at the Rams' 40-yard line. There's only 30 seconds left in the half, so the Rams are definitely looking to get this first down, then gain some yards and pick up some points at the end of the half to at least go into halftime tied 3-3. So what the Rams are going to do here is have a receiver go out to block a defensive back, and then have another receiver cut into the bottom half of the screen. This is a pick play, and it's the perfect way to beat man coverage. It puts 2 Patriots on 1 Ram and allows the other Ram to get free and will be able to pick up the first down. However, once again, it's zone coverage. As you see, Jonathan Jones isn't worried about the Ram who's blocking another receiver, and that essentially just takes that receiver out of the play. I think on this play, you have to blame McVay and Goff, and also give credit to Brian Flores for it being a very good play call by the Patriots, and a very poor job of realizing that that might be a thing that they're doing by the Rams. This play actually might have worked if Goff made the throw a little bit quicker, but you can't really blame him for that. I mean, it's hard to tell that it's going to be zone coverage literally 0.2 seconds after the ball is snapped, so I'm not going to blame him for that at all, but it really goes to show how the Patriots were one step ahead of the Rams seemingly all night long. I do think I have to make a separation here, as McVay and Goff don't necessarily both deserve equal blame. McVay got outcoached, and he got outcoached pretty bad, but he didn't get outcoached to the point that his team should have only put up 3 points. His overall offensive coaching was quite lackluster. However, I do think with mediocre quarterback play, he still scores around 17 to 23, 24 points, somewhere in that range, which isn't great in today's NFL, but would have probably won this game. This play was an example of actually a good call by Sean McVay. As you see, Brandon Cooks is going to run a hook route on this play, which to me makes perfect sense. This was midway through the 3rd quarter, and I do think McVay started to realize that he can't be relying on Jared Goff to be making decisions, and this is the play that would work against man or zone coverage. If Gilmore is playing zone coverage here, he has to make sure he's over the top of Cooks, and then when Cooks cuts back in, it'll allow him to get open. However, against man coverage, you want something with a quick cut, and this route has that as well. So either way, this is the route that Goff should look to throw to. The problem with a play like this is it takes a little bit of time to develop. However, the Rams are going to be running play action, and they have a receiver and tight end just in this play to block. So this is actually a really good play design by the Rams. They're taking the decision out of Jared Goff's hands, and it's a good way to pick up some yards. Goff makes a very good throw, and Cooks makes a very good catch. And that's one thing I do want to mention, is that Goff still played physically well. I thought for the most part, the actual passes he was throwing were pretty good passes. The problem was his decision making. He got fooled constantly, and here's another good example of that. As you can tell, it's pretty clear that it's man coverage, as the Patriots have 3 defensive backs on the bottom half of the screen, 2 of which are pressing, which can give you a pretty good idea that's going to be man coverage. The Patriots are going to be running a cover 1 hole, but it's not a typical cover 1 hole. Typically, this is what you would do in a cover 1 hole. However, instead of having the linebacker be in the middle of the screen, they're actually going to move him to the bottom half of the screen. This is once again doing a great job of taking advantage of Goff's inability to make post-snap reads. As you see, this is the route concept that the Rams are going to be running, and there should be a route open right there. But of course, in a typical cover 1 hole, that route wouldn't be open as there'd be a linebacker in that area. So if it were a cover 1 hole, he should throw it to one of the 2 routes on the bottom half of the screen. As you see, if Peyton Manning was quarterback on this play, for example, this would have been an absolute disaster, because he would have realized what's going on, but hit Josh Reynolds, who's right there, who would have easily been able to run past the first down marker, which is right there, and then be able to get a first down, and possibly even more, as he has plenty of room to run. However, this is also the kind of play that the Patriots would only run against a guy like Jared Goff. He ends up not throwing it to a guy who's wide open, and instead throwing it to a guy who's in double coverage, and it ends up falling incomplete. I do feel a little bit bad being this hard on Jared Goff. I mean, after all, the guy's only 24 years old and he's playing in the Super Bowl. I want to talk about that Brandon Cooks end zone play because I actually think Goff is getting a little bit too much unfair blame on this play. On this play, New England's running a cover 4 zone, and this is the route concept that the Rams are running, and this actually isn't a great way to beat a cover 4 zone. Typically, the best way to do this would be against a cover 3, where there's only 3 safeties back. Because then the safety in the middle of the screen would have to choose either guard their deep route or the route underneath. Of course, as a safety, you never want to let a guy get past you, so you'd have to guard a deep route, which would allow the receiver underneath to get open. And typically it makes it even worse since it's a cover 4, meaning one Patriot can guard Cooks, and the other Patriot can guard the receiver who would have tried to get underneath that cover 3. Now, sometimes this coverage could end up breaking down, as both safeties could end up running deep to not allow a receiver to get past them, and that could allow a receiver to get open. However, both Patriots there are going to screw up very badly and break down. This is going to allow Cooks to get wide open. Cooks knows he's open instantly and is frantically waving his hand to try to get Goff to see him and throw it to him. People gave Goff a lot of heat for not making that throw quickly enough. However, I just don't think that's fair. This is a tough read to make because in no world are you thinking that somehow Cooks is going to end up getting wide open in the end zone on this play. We've already established that Goff isn't the best at going through his progressions, but this is a really tough play even for someone who's good at that kind of thing. You're basically spending this whole play waiting for a certain receiver to get open, and then at a split second, all of a sudden, another receiver is wide open in the end zone. He also still did throw it to Cooks pretty quickly. It could have been a little bit faster, but he still threw it there pretty quickly. And again, I'm not saying that no quarterback can make this play. I think it's fair to say that if you're going to win the Super Bowl, you might have to make plays like that. However, I don't think he deserves blame for this one necessarily as much as he deserves blame for the other 37 times he threw the ball. What I really think is worth mentioning here is look at Jason McCourtney on this play. He's not in charge of guarding that middle of the screen. He's in charge of guarding the upper left-hand corner of the field, which he does. Now all of a sudden, he realizes Cooks is wide open, and he ends up breaking in. Goff also got some heat for not throwing this ball hard enough. He probably should have thrown it on more of a line, which he should have. That is a fair thing to blame him for. But again, if he throws it on a line, maybe one of those safeties gets back and is able to pick it off. So it's a risky play for Goff either way. It's the tough play for Goff to make, and he isn't able to make it. I do think this is a very understandable mistake. I mean, you take a good quarter, like take Andrew Luck for example. I think he probably makes this play 7 out of 10 times. It's not a gimme by any means. Again, if you're going to win a Super Bowl, you have to have plays like that, and the Rams didn't have plays like that, and it's a huge reason why they lost the Super Bowl. However, I just don't think that this is the one play to look at. I think it's the other plays that were a bigger example of why he struggled so much. Like this one. There was a stretch from around midway through the second quarter all the way into the fourth quarter where the Patriots were almost exclusively running zone coverage. Not entirely, but almost. So as you see, this is the route concept that the Rams are running, and it's a perfect way to beat a zone coverage, like take a cover 3 for example, as it had 2 receivers that could get easily open. I think McVay does deserve some blame on this one. It wasn't a great throw from Goff, but there was no one open anyways, so what was Goff going to do on a play like that? I know New England was running so much zone that the Rams were looking for a way to beat zone coverage. However, I do think in today's NFL, you have to always have at least one way where you have an idea of beating man coverage. LA didn't on this play, and it ended up being just giving away a down. While there was a lot of good to talk about when it comes to the Patriots defense, and a lot of bad to talk about when it comes to the Rams offense, there's no better example of both than this play right here. The Patriots have a cover 0 blitz on this one, meaning that no matter where Jared Goff throws it to, he's going to have a one-on-one matchup. However, it also means that he's going to have to make a throw quickly. Take a look at this route concept. I think anyone who knows football could tell you instantly which of these 3 routes you should throw to a man coverage and which one you shouldn't. Against man coverage, you want something that either has a curl route or a cut. And while those 2 routes don't necessarily have the best cuts, they are still breaking in a way that could help against man coverage. Although personally, I think the curl route would be the best way to go. However, Goff just got impatient here. He tried to take a shot to the end zone, and he really didn't have to do that. There's a Ram wide open on the top half of the screen. This is an easy 5 yards or so, and who knows, if he can break a tackle, it's a touchdown. Instead, he got impatient and threw up a complete jump ball to the bottom half of the screen. It was like a game of 500 you see as kids, and Gilmore's in great positioning here. It ends up being the biggest interception of Gilmore's life, and honestly, probably the easiest one as well. The game wasn't over at that point, but it might as well have been. The Patriots were able to march down the field, kick a field goal, and now to have their 6th ring. I know kind of the thesis of this video is how bad of a job Jared Goff and McVay did, but I want to be clear that the Patriots deserve a ton of credit. And for the Rams, I know some people have said, now the Patriots have exposed the Rams offense and the Rams have nowhere to go from here. However, I don't agree with that at all. While they did expose Jared Goff's biggest weakness, which is his post-snap read ability, I don't think Jared Goff is now just not going to be a good quarterback because he had this bad game. I think Jared Goff just has a place where he really has to work on in the future. And I could actually see Jared Goff losing this game be the best thing to happen to him in terms of getting better as a football player. He essentially hit rock bottom. He had a very bad game, and his team lost the Super Bowl because of it. However, he now knows what he has to work on. And if he can successfully get past that part of his game, it could end up being very good news for Rams fans in the future. It's really tough just to get to a Super Bowl, let alone going back to one and winning one. However, am I going to count them out next year? Absolutely not.